Good afternoon. Thanks again for joining us at ETS21. We've had amazing opening sessions, and today we're very excited to dive in more about the customer and the curiosity being driven just around the whole changing energy landscape. I'm joined with a distinguished panel today who is front and center and working to champion what the customer needs and really champion their communities to take them to the next level. And we also have the CEO of Bidgely here, whose company is advancing some core technology that's going to enable communities to kind of take that next step in customer engagement. So with that, I want to start off just with quick intros, get right to it. Rudy, I'd like you to kick us off. What are you doing, title, and where are you tuning in from?
Well, thank you, Jason, and I'm very excited to be here today with my fellow panelists here at Zpryme. I am getting on to Zoom from San Antonio, Texas. I'm the Chief Customer and Stakeholder Engagement Officer for CPS Energy, which is the nation's largest municipally owned electric and gas utility. We serve roughly 880,000 electric customers. We've got over 350,000 natural gas customers, and close to $12 billion in assets, $2.5 billion in revenue. So we, by any measure, are a very large utility, doing a lot of really cool things, and I'm excited to talk to you all about some of the things we're doing today.
Great, and Abhay.
Thank you, Jason. This is Abhay Gupta, founder and CEO at Bidgely. Glad to be here. Thank you, Zpryme. And started Bidgely about 10 years back. Bidgely, for those who don't know, is the premier data analytics and customer transformation company. And we're breaking the bounds by using the data that's sitting with the utility, especially the ones who have invested in the AMI meters, and we extract the deepest insights from the data to completely personalize the interactions and change operations from grid planning to customer interaction to all the sort of targeting. We've about 35 plus utility customers, and we're processing more than, I would say, 25 million homes of data. So growing fast, and thanks to the adoption of latest data-driven technologies in the industry, and glad to be here.
Thank you. And Nancy.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Nancy Bui-Thompson. I'm currently serving as the president of the board of directors at SMUD, so Sacramento Municipal Utility District, the country's 6th largest public utility with over 650,000 customers and about serving 1.5 million people in Sacramento County. This is my 14th year as an elected member on the board, so it's been a minute. And for my day job, because people don't realize that elected position is not a full-time job, even though we work full-time. My day job is I'm the CIO at WellSpace Health. We provide healthcare for people experiencing homelessness who are uninsured and are on Medicaid.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, all guests again, and we're going to dive right into it. So, and Rudy, I'll let you take the first stab at this one. And so what customer groups are you seeing becoming more engaged when it comes to energy? And then secondly, if someone can touch on, what is really driving this interest or the curiosity of the customer?
Well, thank you, Jason. And I guess I will start. Customers are, becoming much more engaged in how they're using energy. Information is just available at their fingertips. I mentioned we have 880,000 customers. Close to 650,000 of those customers actually have profiles on Manage My Account. So, which is a huge percentage in our industry. We're better than I think the median for that type of engagement. So customers are much more educated. They're much more aware of how they're using energy. A lot of interest in solar here in San Antonio, and so we've got a lot of customers who are utilizing solar and battery storage technology. And recently, back in February, we had a pretty major event, winter storm event that really has impacted how customers take or don't take for granted the energy that they get on a daily basis from us. So we have seen a large number of customers move towards a resiliency product interest, whether that be on the commercial side, putting in batteries and generation of their own. I've even had a cousin of mine down in the valley here in Texas who said, hey, what do you think about me putting a generator in my home? I was like, you got space for it and you got the money to do it, have at it. And so even at the residential side, you've seen customers move in a more resilient direction. And so we're pivoting, to offer those types of products and be, offer expertise in that area for customers who are interested, and that's really what's driving the interest is, their recent experience with being out of power for, multiple days will get everybody more interested maybe than they normally would be.
And Nancy, is that similar to what you're seeing? I know California has a very different dynamic, so would love your perspective here.
Yes, it's very challenging here in California. As many of you know, we've been experiencing, wildfires of a lifetime. And this is changing the way people think about how they use energy and how fleeting it can be. And so from not just our most engaged, right? I think all of us have that small core group of environmentalists that are always the first to buy solar or EVs and storage. What we've seen because of climate change and the difference in that this is all around us, it's physically hitting us in the face, that our lowest income customers are becoming more engaged because it's not just about their bills, right? It's about their ability to work, right? Our low income wage employees are hourly. And when the environment is not in a way that they can breathe and go to work, it affects their paycheck. So there's so much more acuity in terms of how they can save money, right? How they can manage their bills. So programs across the board, are being revamped. So we've been in the news the last few weeks because of our zero carbon by 2030, but our recent policy changes and rate changes that are, sunsetting the subsidies for solar customers. We propped up this industry when it was a nascent industry, and now it's doing really well. And we found that, over time that the low income, customers were subsidizing the high income customers who, they can't afford solar, right? And so now we're looking at various programs to smooth that across. And we're looking, if you are going to get solar, to get storage so that we don't lay the cost on our lowest income customers. So we're really seeing an engagement as to how they can, be more aware, how they can take advantage of our, thermostat programs, or, take better advantage of our time of day rates. Because I think we focus so long on just the really small, very vocal, very politically active group. And now we're hearing more from our community partners who serve the underserved. And so I think that's really pushed us to reevaluate where we're putting money. We've always supported our community and low income programs, but we're really shifting, in terms of programs and mechanisms and subsidies, and just human effort, right? Even in COVID, we've reached out virtually. Most of our customers may not have computers, but they have phones, right? And so they can, we can hop on a Zoom, we can do virtual tours, they can come to our meetings, they can learn so much easier than having to take a bus and walking and a bike to SMUD, right? To hear about our programs. And so I think that, the curiosity of that small 1% has always been there, but now we're realizing that we really need to focus on that middle to lower income bracket to make sure that everybody is with us on the zero carbon by 2030 goal, because it's not just going to be that small 1%.
So Abhay, Rudy mentioned this a little bit, that customers have that information at their fingertips, and then you guys are able to give some detailed data to those, those 25 million homes. So really will love your perspective, especially putting that lens from what those customers who really engage with data, what do they want to do? What comes next for them?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, Nancy already covered low and medium income very well, so I won't go deeper into that. But the question you asked is two-part. One question is, what are the customers, when do they get engaged? But the second question you sort of alluded to is, what's next for them? See, data is the start of the chain. Of course, the huge, in fact, hundreds of millions or even billions of investment by each of the utility into the AMI infrastructure got them the data. But what you do with the data is up to us, right? Putting the data in front of the customers is obviously the first step, so they can go and say, hey, when did my consumption go up and down? But what we do generally is extract information from the data, to tell people, hey, here's how much money you spent in air conditioner or heating or cooling or refrigerator, or if you have electric vehicle, this is how much it's costing you to charge your car, etc. What that does is it solves a puzzle, because people can look at the data but only process so much information. But this is more like your bank statements, your phone bills, your credit card statements are itemized. So when your credit card bill goes up, you go into your bill and say, hey, why did my bill go up? Oh, I forgot that I spent money on airline ticket and therefore my bill was higher. And then you find, and you don't end up calling your credit card company. In electricity, we call our electricity company and say, hey, my bill is high. Like 99.9% of the cases, your meter is fine, right? But people don't know the information, so they just call the electricity company, and it does not only hurts their operating cost, but it also hurts the branding and reputation, right? So giving people information on where the money is going, where are they less efficient, more efficient, in language they understand, is these appliances is a start. Second part is time of use. There are parts of the country where time of use became default, like SMUD, right? For example, like we used to work with Ontario, state of Ontario in Canada, where everybody's on time of use. Similarly, California is going there. SMUD has already taken that step. So now there's more possibility for people to say, hey, what appliances am I running when my peak rates are running? And by the way, even the concept of peak rate is new to majority of the people. So educating on peak rates, but then going further and saying, oh, I've been using these appliances in these peak hours, I should not do that. So that level of education and information allows people to optimize their bill, especially the low and medium income who want to optimize their bill. You're now empowering them to understand where the money is going and how can I shift load or reduce efficiency in a certain areas. That's an example of what we do. And people who are getting involved more and more, of course, there are different classes of people, like Rudy mentioned, but specifically when there is a change in the status. For example, of course, when people move into a new house, they're obviously for the first few months, they're very, tuning up their house. People who buy electric vehicle, people who buy solar, battery is still early in the market, or the time of use happens, right, for the grid. Those are the instances where people become all of a sudden very, very involved, or there is a bill shock. My bill all of a sudden is much higher than what I was expecting to be. So these are the events at which people become more involved, and these are exactly the moments we need the information to figure out what to do or why my bill was higher. And that's the power of data that you can bring to the table. So unlock your data, value of your data to help your customers, right? That's the key.
Thank you. So next question is, and all of you have all touched on this at some point about this disruption. I think it's clear, all of us know that this is coming. So I want to frame this question a little differently, and Rudy and Nancy get some feedback. So what do we need to be doing better, or utilities could be doing better to prepare for disruptions, to make sure that our customers, the customers out there, are prepared, and then they can access the information, and at the end of the day also make sure we're providing that reliability that they've been accustomed to for the past 100 years. Nancy, you'd like to start?
Sure. I think we need to change what our typical relationship with the customer has been, right? The typical relationship is, for us, it's lights on, rates low. And that's, which we're always going to keep that, right? We always want to keep the lights on and the rates low. But we need to realize that there are, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be different customers that have different needs. And we have to realize that all customers, should be listened to, right? Should be cared for, but we also have to look at what those, subsidies and rate structures affect all of our community, right? And really look at that balance going forward as to where we need to spend our dollars. And so, as we look at our budget structures, we always want to do the bright and shiny items, right? But, a lot of it is being more than just a utility to save you a direct bill, right? I think the difference now is, for us at SMUD, we're looking at how do we help the economy? How do we help grow the workforce? How do we help grow, the access to healthcare? So I think that the role of the utility has been fairly myopic in the past, which is lines and wires and bills. Now with SMUD and our Sustainable Communities effort and the California Mobility Center, we're realizing that we are the economic trusted partner in our community. And so for us to be able to help raise all people so they can afford their bills rather than just giving a bill discount, right? That we need to be an active partner. So that's why we've embarked on sustainable communities and our California Mobility Center, because we realize that if people don't have access to clean water, good healthcare, they don't have navigation for jobs, childcare. We're starting a beautiful childcare center on our brand new campus, all the way to California Mobility Center, which is being a hub for EV technology and R&D. And so I think that the role will need to change and will need to evolve, because that job of us providing energy will only be one piece. And that job of providing energy will get smaller and smaller, right? As people can self-generate, as people get off the grid. And so how do we help our other customers who can't do that, right? That don't have the means. And so let's invest in community partners from, a women's shelter who's, Weave, who's escaping domestic violence, or my sister's house, women, again, leaving abusive situations. How do we support those organizations by workforce development, funding, access to jobs, so that we can raise our community as a whole, so that they can pay their bills, right? That they can be contributing members of our community. So I think that's really the change that we're looking at, that, our model will become obsolete one day. Our model of these large, power plants will change as people can self-generate. So how do we help those that can't, while keeping our infrastructure ready for tomorrow?
Key points there. Rudy, love your perspective.
Sure. Can you hear me, Jason? I had to switch devices there. Apologize for that.
I can hear you.
I think Nancy hit on a lot of really key topics. When you're a publicly owned utility like SMUD and CPS Energy, how you engage your community in, managing expectations and meeting customers, expectations of you as a utility. We've recently had a rate advisory committee appointed by the board to really look at CPS Energy's rate structure and look at, how the rest of the industry is changing and how can we incorporate some of the new methods of, billing customers and for our products and services in an effort to not find ourselves, irrelevant. Customers could cut us out of the equation if they wanted, if they're willing to take, the risk and make the investment. They could put a battery, put a solar farm, and, really kind of get off grid. And some customers are doing that. So how do we recognize that, the customers, just in general, you look at Amazon, you look at, we've talked about this before, you look at big data and how customers are buying products and services differently. If as in the industry, if we stick our head in the sand and think that can't happen to us, then obviously we're going to miss, the boat in terms of staying relevant. So for me, if you look at, I'm generally responsible for the strategy of how we engage stakeholders, and we have such a wide array of interests in our community. There's all kinds of ways CPS Energy can help address community policy goals that we have to be mindful of, and to stay ahead of that, you got to stay engaged. You got to be talking to the various stakeholders in your community about what it is they expect out of CPS Energy. We always talk at CPS Energy about our guiding pillars. We look at a broad view of lens. We know our customers want us to be reliable. They expect us to be affordable. They want us to be environmentally responsible, to manage our security risks, both cyber and physical. To work safely, to do all that in a financially responsible manner. So, in my mind, if you're balanced in the approach you're taking to serve your customers, especially as a publicly owned utility, then whatever change comes, you'll be ready to meet that head on because you're paying attention, right? And so for me, I cannot discount anything my customer is telling me right now, because if it's meaningful for them, it has to be meaningful for us as well. And so just, that awareness in my mind is how you kind of stay ahead of customer expectations so that you don't become irrelevant. I think Nancy hit on a lot of really important points on monitoring the landscape, to ensure that we always talk about this, and I know it's somewhat abstract, but meeting the customer where they are is really, really important. I got to engage the customer where they want to engage with their utility, not where I want them to engage, and so to do that, you really have to be flexible and lean in, recognizing that every day customers' expectations change of us.
Got it. And Abhay, I think this is a good segue to the work you're doing in terms of particularly looking at that customer that I think Nancy and both Rudy said that kind of pulls the utility in the direction that they want to go. We can debate about the share of voice and if it's right, but you definitely have a stance of how we can engage these hyper engaged customers, EVs, solar, digital tools. Can you talk maybe one, how technology can help them, but one, how we can help them be a champion for the utility as well?
Right. So I would first like to acknowledge something that I always learn, from when, in some certain panels like this. While it is all hot technologies, EV, solar, etc., there is a big focus on mass majority, which is not EV and solar. But I guess it's about preparation for the future where more and more people will adopt EV and solar, right? So just acknowledging the fact that what we'll talk about is still a small minority of the entire population. But in the preparation of the future, to say, as more and more people embrace these electric vehicles, solar and batteries over the next decade, it will take time, right? These people obviously become more engaged because they are seeking something more from their utility. Like for example, I bought an electric vehicle. I have no clue how much it cost for me to charge my electric vehicle. When I used to have a gasoline car, at least I knew, okay, I fill the gas 3 times a month and it cost me about $55 or $60 to fill the tank. But with my time varying rates, when am I charging, the difference, I have no clue today how much I charge my car for. And I think that's a basic point. I mean, would somebody be able to tell me? Because my car company is not telling me. They are telling me how many miles I drive, but they're not telling me. So, and similarly, when somebody buys a solar, they all of a sudden become more like they've invested. Either they've taken a PPA or they invested $10,000 to $15,000 on their roof, and all of a sudden they want to know, hey, how much am I generating and how much am I consuming and what's the whole equation? And believe me, absolutely no clue. I mean, the solar rates by itself are so complicated that even experts like us cannot figure out that part, and then forget people understanding, how much I generated, how much I consumed. And by the way, the solar company who put solar on my roof is obviously not talking to my utility. So there is a disconnected equation, right? So now the question is from Nancy and Rudy's perspective, how do you bring that customer and continue to become like a loyal / advocate of the utility as they are diversifying from utility, because they are no longer buying all that energy that they were buying previously from CPS or SMUD. They are generating on their own roof. How do they stay loyal? How do they even think that SMUD is relevant to me, right? So this is where, if you have customer engagement solution which allows people to understand, hey, this is how much your car costed in charging you. Hey, we have given you these EV rate plans and we are enabling you to charge your car at the lowest price point. And therefore, what used to cost you $65 before is now costing you $8.50 or $9. That message of information and giving that rate plan is going to help everybody, because the customer is going to love the utility by saying, hey, my utility is allowing me to get my car, gas pump filled in for 1/8 the price before. Second part is, you as utility will be able to influence them to shift their load. See, today it's all an experiment because the number of EVs are still less than 1 or 2% on the road. But as that load increases, you are running into a grid problem. So you want to be influencing those customers by saying, hey, you charge in off-peak hours, or rather off-peak hours will also be shifted for every community, right? Not everybody can charge at midnight. Then midnight doesn't stay off-peak hours. So basically involving using data to interact intelligently with your EV customers, solar customers, to tell them what's happening in their house, what's the new equation of money, and then influencing them to shift their load, etc., I think is a basic starting point today. In 3 to 4 years, that equation will change slightly when the load even becomes worse in the highs and lows on the grid. But for now, if we cannot give them this piece of information, then we are not going to be able to engage those customers, without using the data and without providing them basic information. How much is my car costing? How much is my solar producing? And we can do all of that with the analytics. It's all possible in this world. So that would be my message, and engage them with meaningful information.
Good. Yeah, good points there. And now turning to Rudy, you're talking about awareness because you finished on that point. I did want to give you a chance to really talk about this innovative program you guys have launched and have won several awards for in those personal connections. So one, maybe talk a little bit about that, but also maybe discuss some of the innovations you might use from those lessons learned, and maybe how you can carry those out into new programs to help impact that awareness equation.
Sure. Well, for the better part of 18 months now, we had been, we had suspended disconnects, had waived late fees, in acknowledgement of the pandemic situation that the world found itself in. The least we could do for our customers was to recognize that maybe they were out of work or impacted, however they were impacted by the pandemic. So many we've lost so many lives that families have just been devastated, and so we're trying to do the best we can to do our part. We have as our past due balances have grown, we started to almost immediately, we started calling customers through what we called our core team, our customer outreach resource effort team. And, to the tune of reaching out to over 90,000 customers at this point. We've connected with close to 60,000 of those customers. So we had very good success rate, either getting to them or them calling us back, whatever the case might be. Once they realized we weren't calling necessarily as a collections call, we were calling to ask them how they're doing and see what we could do to help them. We've connected customers with all kinds of resources to help with, rental, payment assistance and, food assistance and all kinds of assistance that's available out there. CPS Energy really has worked to kind of be that one-stop shop. And we've also helped during that time and since then by, arranging for close to $34 million in direct bill payment assistance, for our customers. So while those balances have grown, to up over $100 million, we have, that number would be worse if it wasn't for the direct outreach that we've been doing, primarily for our residential customers. We have begun a process of reintroducing disconnects back into our community. We started with the largest customers. We'll move to small business customers who haven't, we've been unable to contact, and then, over time we'll move back to the entirety of our customer base. But the main thing is through that core team, nobody has to get disconnected if they'll just engage with us. We'll help them connect with assistance. We'll put them on payment plans. We'll do whatever we have to do to ensure that they don't get disconnected. But for our customers, being proactive about it, or at least taking our call when we call them, is the first step towards ensuring that they don't have to be disconnected. And that's something, Jason, we're going to continue doing. This program has been hugely successful. As you mentioned, we've gotten a couple awards from customer service organizations in our industry that I'm very proud, of the teams that have been working in this space. We're going to kind of carry this process into the outreach we do for our small business customers, because a couple of stats that I think every utility has to know these stats in their service territory. 89% of our entire customer base is residential. A good percentage of that, about 60%, are would be considered low to moderate income customers of that. Of the 11% that aren't residential, about 90% of those customers are small business. So knowing that, we know where the effort needs to go at this outreach, and that really helps allows us to provide the focus we need to serve our customers, the way we think, we do the best job to do that.
And Nancy, SMUD, just like CPS has been recognized for the advanced analytics it takes in marketing, the innovative campaigns there. So what I would like to kind of know is, like, how did that, because this was all done, you guys had that pre-pandemic. So how did taking some of that into this pandemic age maybe help SMUD better serve the community during the pandemic?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, we really amped up our customer insight and digital channel avenues. We had a kind of old school Gartner research. People sit in a room or take robo surveys. But during the pandemic, we used our community groups, and it's called SMUD Power Voice or SMUD Plugged In, and these online communities gave us instant feedback on ads, on programs, on our website, on the ad, because we wanted to quickly engage, but do it safely, right? So we were able to twist how we outreach to our customer segments, our little guinea pigs that we run our programs by, but we also use, along with the humans, we've also used AI and machine learning to help for drivers and develop predictive models for customer behavior. So, we've been able to kind of take our old school concept and add a new layer of technology, but we've also learned to be more nimble. I don't know about you, but I've worked a lot of my career in utilities and government are not really the fastest moving. It's often a glacier pace. But what's nice about COVID is that we, changed the way, and we started to change our way before, but it really amped that up, that we have to be nimble, we have to be quick, from concept to development, being able to have that agile way of thinking. I mean, having an agile development mentality was new several years ago, and now that's commonplace at SMUD. We've also had to learn that we, again, need to meet people where they are. So we still do regular snail mail for our customers. Some people, our customers love that mail. And, there's many that are signed up for email, but social media, we've really amped up our game. So we were the first utility in the country to have our own TikTok account. So your kids are probably on it. I'm on it, not very often. But, SMUD, we launched our very first TikTok campaign for kids in middle school and high school that they create videos as to why they wanted to live in a clean power city. So that's our kind of our mantra going forward to 2030, which is clean power city. And these kids were amazing. The ingenuity, just the insight, so we had over 1.2 million impressions. There were 160,000 views of the TikTok videos, and there was over 23,000 likes and shares. So, we were a little nervous at our first TikTok challenge. There's a lot of craziness out there, but we realized that, we have to engage all of our customers, and that's our, kids that are going to be the next generation. We use Twitter heavily, especially during storms and outages. Before it was more just like posting a Twitter message saying, I'm sorry you're down. Now we have a team of people actively engaging with people. We show photos because it's always like, why is my power out? That's really all people want to know. And even though it's windy and 80-mile-an-hour winds, you would think people would know why the power's out. And so what we'll do is we'll post photos on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as to why your power's out. The pole's down, a car hit the pole, a huge tree is blocking the road. And so customers are much more understanding when they can physically see why their power is out. So it's been really exciting to be able to take, all of what we've learned about humans and an instant change a message and to be able to more effectively message our customers.
Great. So just to our audience, just as a quick note, submit some questions. We do have just under 10 minutes left with the session, but we'd love to hear any audience questions that you guys have for our panel today. And Nancy, Zpryme's a big fan of ideas. So next year at ETS, we got to make sure to have the TikTok challenge panel to see which panelists do the best TikTok, and we will definitely give SMUD lots of credit for that, for sure. But there's a big talk about climate change and renewables coming online, and all of you guys are doing something different there. So I wanted to make sure we got some feedback there of this. It can't just be supply side, and Abhay, I think you made this point, right? We need customers to buy in. We need to have behavior shifts so they can help be part of the solution. So how do we help better educate those customers so that way they can be bought in to help the utilities meet these goals? And Abhay, maybe start with you with feedback there.
So bought in into the renewables and solar and those stuff, like
bought into maybe energy efficiency, better demand response programs. So because it can't just be a supply side solution.
Got it. Okay. So I think okay. So did you ever get an email from Google, which is a broadcast email? Hey, my entire Google customer base in California, we are doing this. You don't get that. That's called personalization. But I do get my PG&E email, which routinely tells me, hey, this is what we are doing in the community. Now, I understand the PR part of it, but the difference is personalization. If you take your programs and broadcast to everybody, right, you don't need to put billboards, and I'm going to go a little critical here. You don't need to put billboards on highways educating people about a program, because if you know which customer is good for what program, you can go target them. For example, the bad side equation, I got my $100 rebate from thermostat, but I don't have AC in my house. Now, obviously it was meant to shift my AC, but I don't have AC in my house and my utility doesn't know that. So they gave me the $100 rebate. And whether they call it equity or whether they call it ignorance, that $100 is a sheer waste of tax ratepayer money, right? So now comes the power of, you want customers to be more involved, you offer them something that is meaningful for them. I have a pool, give me an offer on my pool pump saying, hey, your pool pump is single speed pool pump, you're running from 2 p.m. in the 7 p.m. in the afternoon. Here is a $150 rebate, and here is a value for you to shift your pool pump from single speed to variable speed. And within a year and a half, even with your investment, you will recoup that money. That is message that we can give to customers, and we ought to give the customers if you want their involvement, right? I mean, if you're targeting a refrigerator recycle program, you're targeting a heat pump program, whether it's electrification or energy efficiency, don't broadcast. Just pick people who are using their heating more often and higher than other people, and you can even figure out that they're lower CR rating ACs or heating, and you get the message. That personalization is the key. The moment you start doing personalization, people will start opening and reacting to emails more. The question is, can we change our habits from broadcast marketing to more targeted approach, which is, by the way, almost every single industry is doing that today, right? So I gave the example of Netflix or Google. They don't broadcast their messages. They know what we are doing. So my single message would be, go understand your customers, who they are, what they are doing in the house, and give them a very targeted offer with an ROI. If you spend $500, we will pitch in $200, and your ROI is 3 years. Great. Something like that.
All right. Nancy or Rudy, wanted to see if you had any thoughts there on some of the customer-focused programs to help shift behaviors.
Well, I tell you what, I'll go first here. I think Abhay is right on the money. The programs that we have created for our customers have always been about changing behavior, about moving them in a direction that we think will create more sustainability for our entire system, for our community, for the world ultimately. So the energy efficiency and demand response programs have changed over time. They have to. Again, you can't go to Lowe's these days and find an old light bulb. You're going to get LEDs now, right? So you don't need to incent light bulb behavior, anymore, because they have, the world has moved in a different direction. So the programs, we've got what we call our Flex EV rewards program now. I think in San Antonio we're still in the very early adoption phases of EVs. But I was noticing as I was walking in our building, the best parking spots, at CPS Energy are for those who who have invested in EVs and get the closest parking spot to the front door. And getting those folks who are going to be charging at home to on our time of use rate, so that they're charging outside of our peak hours. That's a behavioral deal. You get them thinking about the morning and the evening charging, as just part of their behaviors. Someday you won't have to offer, those programs, because that's just the rate they will be on. So, so we're, in addition to the major investments, the utility scale investments, we make, CPS Energy is, number one in solar in the state of Texas. I think we're number 5 or 6 in the country as it relates to utility scale solar. We're number 2 in wind in the state of Texas. You're going to get a lot of wind and solar as part of our overall diversified portfolio. But we also want customers to be mindful of what they can do, how they can, like I always try to tell everybody, I don't recycle because it's easy. I recycle because that's the one thing I can do to try to make a difference in the world to try to create a more sustainable future for my boys. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make it easy for our customers to adopt new technologies in ways that they really don't have to think a whole lot about.
And Nancy, anything to add there?
I mean, along with just being more nimble and customizing, right? So we have so many different programs now, from people that have heat pumps, so we go to electricity, cooking. So we're going out in schools in the community to talk about reduction cooktops. And so I think that's the thing, right? We can't just have these big programs that are blasted to the mass media anymore. We still do, because we do love our billboards, I must say. SMUD, our customers feel really good. So it's interesting, is again, we do customer engagement. People do like seeing our signs, and it's one of the most interesting thing. Back in the day, people were like, why is my utility spending all this money? But when we did the analysis, for time of day, we had almost no peeps from people when they switched, because we did blanket. So that's, for big programs. But for our other programs, doing that targeting, right? Really looking at communities. And when we go to certain events, really targeting, okay, so what's this event about? Who, what is the demographic here, and bringing the right types of programs and people and the right speakers, right? The people that look like them, right? And so I think that, we've had to again, be more mindful as to where we spend our dollars, who we're spending our dollars with, and how that message is, that it can't just be a one size fits all. And that when we look at awareness, because I'm sure you all have metrics that you all are trying to meet at your utilities of awareness goals, we've had to look at more than just general awareness, and really how are we meeting the customers and providing the right programs for them. Because to your point, if someone's trying to just make the rent, they're not probably want to get paid $30,000 for solar, right? So having that mass market campaign on a billboard in a low income area, it's not where we should be spending our money, right? And so how do we spend it more effectively to give the incentives and programs to the people that need it the most, that's most applicable? So we all need to change as to how we market and outreach. And I think that we've done a good job at trying to find different avenues and different groups to engage.
Got it. Yeah. So well, we've covered a lot, and unfortunately, we're just about at time here. And I heard a lot of the utility role is changing. We need to be more custom. We need to meet them where they are, and we just got to build awareness. So, as last thoughts, and if all of you can give me your 1 or 2 sentences here, I'd just like to get your put your little forecasting cap on, and in 5 years, answer this question: what will the role of the utility be? Abhay, start with you.
Sure. I think first of all, before I go there, I would like to acknowledge this is a hard job. It's a sort of a thankless job for many people, because people take electricity for granted. Like, oh, this is my birthright to get electricity in my house. So just acknowledging all the people behind the scenes who are doing their job. With that, 5 years, I would say, of course, the people are putting more of renewables on their roof, so their supply of energy will become less important, but the grid side problems will become more and more important for utilities to solve, because even as a backup, when you want the electricity, I think the grid is not designed to support the level of ups and like solars and EVs that are going to show up on the grid. So that role will change, and like Nancy mentioned very clearly, the role of utility will change into making sure the infrastructure is ready for, and the pricing related to that infrastructure is not out of the bounds, for people to have a distributed microgrid kind of structure. So preparing for that, from the grid planning perspective, from pricing perspective, even as a backup, because it will be very skewed traffic. It will just be very highs and very lows, and preparing for that. And I'm going to let the community part to Nancy and Rudy. I'm a technical guy, so I'll probably point out to the technical issues on the grid and people, but let the community and PR issues sort of be with Nancy and Rudy.
And Rudy and Nancy, final thoughts on the role of utility in 5 years. And I just apologize, I did miss some of the customer questions, but we'll do our best to get those to you. But Rudy, Nancy, last thoughts there.
Well, I joke. I was chuckling when Nancy was talking about the billboards, because we've got billboards all over San Antonio. So I think the next 5 years will continue to be an evolution. I think we're so used to being the energy experts that, to a certain degree, we got to stop talking down to our customers. They're a lot smarter and educated about energy use probably than we give them credit for. So I want to create a partnership with my customers where possible so that, we can define our energy future, together, that when they want to get a hold of CPS Energy, we make it easy and engaging, and it'd be a positive experience overall. So I think we're moving, we have to move in a direction of giving customers more credit maybe than we've given them in the past for knowing how they want to utilize, our product or their product if they're producing their own power, and we work towards a cleaner, more sustainable future together.
Nancy, last word.
Well, in 5 years, we will be halfway to our goal to carbon zero by 2030. So by then, we will have been in full swing as to how we can decarbonize, how we can either look to sequester our natural gas power plants or offline, replace with hopefully a new or more efficient technology. We are going right now with the, industry standard, right? More solar, more wind. But I'm hoping in the next 5 years, there is some solution of this, carbon sequestration or greater efficiencies for natural gas power plants to lower emissions, and, a better way how to, with solar and storage and that cycle time, right? I mean, it's still very expensive. All of this is still very costly. And, we hope along the way that our customers will join us and be our guinea pigs, right? We'll need some support. They will have to be more engaged because we can't get to zero carbon by 2030 without changing the way that the customers think about us. Because you're right, they are in tuned, they know what their community wants. And so how do we work together in a different, more efficient way than traditionally has been, right? Traditionally is one way, and we're learning through all of our Zoom community engagements that maybe this digital era is not over when COVID is over, because we have such greater participation with our customers by offering an online option rather than getting a babysitter or, like I said, taking a bus or riding a bike to SMUD. And so hopefully in 5 years, we'll be able to have an engagement model that will continue to reach all of our customers where they are, and so they can help us get to our goal of zero carbon by 2030.
Rudy, Abhay, Nancy, thank you all so much for being here at ETS21. Abhay is right. Yeah, there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes sometimes with no thank yous, and you guys are doing it. We appreciate the insights and look forward to visiting again soon. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned, all you out there, for our next session, which will be starting soon. Thanks all.
Bye.
Thank you, Jason.
You.
All right.